In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit, one God. Brothers and sisters in Christ, we have just heard the story of Jesus calling the first disciples, as is accounted in the Gospel according to St. Luke. And we are continuing our homily series talking about discipleship. Now, there's this line at the end. Of course, in this translation, it's, we did this fishing thing, but Simon Peter, I'm going to make you a catcher of men, or to catch men. Of course, the more traditional one that I learned was fisher of men. But it's this idea, we catch people, as it were, as followers of Jesus Christ. And I can't make it any plainer than that. The responsibility of each and every follower of Jesus Christ is for evangelism. We have to go out and share the good news with others. Now, I know in saying that, that's something that people can hiccup on and get stuck. So I want to look a little bit at this gospel story. Before I do that, I want to tell a story of an earlier time in the life of our parish. When you've been around, as I have for 12, I think we're coming on 13 years in the parish, there's a lot of stuff in the rearview mirror that I can talk about at this point, because it's far in the rearview mirror. There have been defining moments for this parish, and defining moments not necessarily in a good way. For example, the year 2012 was not exactly a good year at a certain point for this parish. Now, looking out amongst us here this morning, we recognize that we are functioning today under certain limitations. And we've got, if I'm doing the math correctly in my head, about 18 people here in church. That's because you have to sign up. People aren't all comfortable coming because of this virus. But even with that said, we have people who are following the service and follow faithfully online with our stream service. So there are actually more people than just the 18 we see here. But in 2012, the number 18 was kind of an average number in terms of Sunday liturgy attendance, especially during the summer. But, just as a curiosity thing, I looked up, what was the attendance on the last Sunday of September in 2012? 17. Anyone could come. Everyone knew we were there. 17. That gives you the overall character. But what were some of the things that happened? And they will relate to this story that we just heard from the gospel. Well, the defining moment came this one morning in June of that year. I had actually arrived at the church. It was a weekday, and I was going to do some work at the church. This is when we were back in Harry's building in downtown Chagrin. And it was an earlier configuration. So we had the one room where we had the church set up, and where the yoga classes happened used to be our parish hall. And so I was across the hall, and I kind of got there, opened the doors, grabbed the mail out of the mailbox, and I sat down. And the phone rang. And it was a phone call from Father Peter Gilquist. He was the original chair of our Department of Missions and Evangelism. He's part of that Evangelical Orthodox group that came in with thousands of people and these parishes that they started. And he was technically retired, but he still went out and about and helped parishes with questions of missions and evangelism. And the phone call was a culmination of actually a year-long conversation. Ann Thomas and I had lunch with Father Peter and his wife the previous summer at our Archdiocese convention. And we were talking with him about St. Luke's and asking for advice and looking at possible things that we could do to grow our parish. And the conversation had led to one up to about a month prior. So in May of 2012, I had a conversation with Father Peter. And he said, Father Matthew, I think I've decided that what I need to do is come to your parish, and we'll have an extended weekend. I'll do a retreat, I'll speak publicly, I'll work with the parish council, and we'll come up with a plan for your parish. But before I commit to that and before you announce it, there's something I have to check into. I'll give you a call back in June. So the phone call I answered was from Father Peter. And he was very matter of fact. And he said, Father, I'm very sorry. The cancer that I had that has been in remission for about 10 years now has returned. And it's terminal. I probably will not see the end of the summer. And so I'm sorry I can't come in September, as we had discussed. And so that was the first thing. I had been expecting the cavalry to come into town and help with the parish after 4 years of doing things. And hearing that the cavalry was not coming. Cavalry and cavalry. Those are the words that get messed up in people's minds. Well, to add to that, I pulled the mail out, and there was a letter from the Archdiocese. And there's usually a skip in the heart when you get a letter from the Archdiocese in June. Because the old practice in the Archdiocese is they would send a letter to the priest and say, congratulations, Father, you're now the priest over here. You have a month to move. Here's the phone number of the parish council chair there. Arrange your moving. So this was still kind of in passing. So I thought, oh no, did I get a letter that they're going to send me somewhere and I have to uproot my family again? But it was a congratulatory letter from the Archdiocese. Congratulations, Father, your parish, your mission has been in existence for 10 years. You are now a parish. P.S. 2013, you need to start paying, you're a tithing parish according to your constitution. You need to start giving a percentage of your budget to the Archdiocese come 2013. So, 17 people average attendance. We need to start paying the Archdiocese. Father Peter is not coming. So it's kind of stark. And I did the math quick in my head. If nothing changed in the parish, we would be out of money by the end of the year. So, pause on that story. We'll come back to that story in a minute. But we have this story that we have in our gospel of Jesus calling the first disciples. And we actually hear the different versions of this story throughout the year. Because we're starting in Luke, this is the first reading we hear from Luke. Beginning of the summer, we hear it from Matthew. There's John's version that we hear at the beginning of Great Lent. It's a little different. But this basic story of the fishing we get in both Matthew and Luke. And so Jesus has begun his public ministry. Well, there's an interlude here. This is like the middle part of the 2012 story. So we fast forward to late July, early August. Father Peter, it was announced July 1st at our Parish Life Conference in Chicago that he had died. And the following week, Ann and I, because Ann was actually a close personal friend of Father Peter's, we went to Indianapolis for the funeral. And then a few weeks later, we had our clergy symposium. This is our every 2 years event at Antiochian Village where the clergy meet. And one of the things that they do is they have workshops. And so there was a new person at the Department of Missions and Evangelism, and that person was doing a workshop. And I went to that, and I was kind of sharing what had happened and my concern. And his response was, Father, that's great. There's this thing I've been doing at my parish. It's guaranteed to get people to join your parish. It'll grow your parish like gangbusters. So I said, well, tell me what this is that you're proposing. He says, we do this thing. In our parish hall, keep in mind our parish hall is the side room in Harry's building. In our parish hall, we have a formal dinner. And we'll put tablecloths out, and there's candlelight, and there's wine, and we have this dinner. And we'll invite people we know to come for dinner. And, the priest gives this brief talk about the church, and all kinds of people join the church as a result. And it just hit me. There is no way on earth that is going to work in our parish. We don't have the space for it. We don't have the patience for it. And coming to dinner has nothing really directly to do with Jesus Christ. So I said a prayer after that clergy symposium. And it was basically this. I'm going to transform it a little with the language that we have in this gospel reading. God, you put me here to fish. And ostensibly, I have a boat and I have a net and I can fish here. But I am catching no fish. I do websites, I mail things to people, I make postcards, I put flyers up in stores, I call people, and none of it works. I'm doing all of this stuff, and none of it works. Clearly you want a church here, because it has existed this long. Clearly you brought the people that are here to this church. And your bishop put me in this church. So something needs to happen. And so I return this to you. This is your church. What do you want to happen here? And I need help to see how that happens. And the decision I made was all of the things that I had been worrying about over the past 4 years in terms of the technique or the method or the new thing, I was not going to worry about. I was going to worry more about fishing the way Jesus Christ wants fishing to happen. So we transition back to the gospel story. What happens? Jesus doesn't ask to enter the boat. He comes in the boat. Peter gets in the boat. It's his boat. He could say, get out of my boat. I'm done fishing. Go home. I'm going home because I've been working all night. Jesus says, go in the water. Peter follows that direction. So this is one point. We need to follow Jesus Christ's direction for going to fish. Even if we're like, I don't know, we fished all night. We go in the deep water. And Jesus tells us where the deep water is. And we put the net in. So it's not to say that we don't use tools like websites and brochures and letters and what have you. But we have to understand that it is the work of Jesus Christ. And we are his tools to make that happen. This goes to another point that I've made in this homily series. The primary place that we work out our Christian discipleship is within the context of the parish, because we do it together and the tools are provided through the church. So the relief on that, to some extent, is each one of you individually doesn't have to go, oh no, this is my burden entirely. I have to go out and wrangle people into the church. It's a responsibility we share as a parish. But there is also that element. Well, if we're going to do this, as we are told as disciples, is part of our responsibility, we have to embrace it as a parish. Now, my primary frustration of 2020 as a priest is we laid a lot of that foundation in January and February. And then we locked the door in March. So a lot of what we can do now is preparation and focusing on that conversation. Well, what does it mean to fish? How do we fish? How do we do that together? And prepare that. And what will that look like in the coming months, given what's possible for us? But we don't have to do it alone. But the caveat that I want to put on here is that it's not, well, let's just try this thing. And maybe, because if it becomes this focus on tools, the net itself doesn't do the fishing. Let's make a better net, is what we'll say. Or let's try this funky little lure that looks like this bug, or let's do this thing. Well, no, we just use the basic tools and we apply them as Jesus Christ gave for us to do. So we don't have to do new or fancy or different things. We just have to do what's already been done by the church for 2,000 years and do it correctly. And it will work. Now I want to close with how things turned around and what I knew was the turning point for the parish in 2012. Because obviously, we kept open. You're still here. Most of you weren't even coming here in 2012. New people have joined us. As I said, the numbers we have are not bad. We're in a building now. There's more work to do, but it's good work. But it's not this fearful thing that at the end of the year we're going to have to board up and put out the out of business sign. So what was that change that I knew? Well, we had someone come visit us at the end of August in 2012. And it was interesting. I didn't get permission to talk about this, so I'll just hint at who it is. They typically sit in the back. I'm not pointing in a particular direction. This person came for liturgy. They left their email address on a form, and immediately at the end of liturgy, they left. And that afternoon, I emailed that person. I said, you were in our church, and I didn't have a chance to welcome you. We're glad you came to St. Luke's. If there's anything I can do in terms of answering questions about our parish, I'd be happy to do that. I got an email back almost immediately. Would you like to meet for lunch? So I wrote back, yes. Can you meet tomorrow? I was like, sure, I can meet tomorrow. So I went out to lunch with this person. And I had had lunches like this before over the past 4 years. And I'd had meetings over coffee like this over the past 4 years. And what had happened in all those lunches and meetings were kind of the people who circled around St. Luke's. Oh, you're Orthodox. Well, I'm Orthodox. This is nice. I want to talk to the priest. And usually it's like, it was fun talking to you, Father. Good luck with your church. This lunch was different. About halfway through lunch, this person said, well, I'm joining your parish. And of course I was like, well, what do you mean you're joining the parish? Well, I've decided I want to be a part of your parish. How do I do that? So he joined the parish. And then subsequent to that, people showed up. Not because of his efforts, not because of my efforts, but because we were focused on Jesus Christ and doing what he asked us to do. And so it is possible. We just need to keep in mind, part of our basic discipleship is to be a fisher. Part of our discipleship is that we are fishers together as a parish. And part of what we remember is we do what Jesus Christ directs us to do. And we don't focus solely on the tools. Glory to Jesus Christ.